This is our last week with our theme, which is a quote from Meister Eckhart. If the only prayer you ever say in your whole life is thank you, it is enough. It will be enough. We used to do a choral version of that where they shortened the words so that we could all sing it, you know. So, it will be enough. And over the course of this month, we've had a few different explorations along those lines. And last week we were talking about asking. That it's very important to have an idea about how to do that, because if you don't, you may not recognize that you have very much to give thanks for. And of course you always do. But asking is such an important part of being open to receive. It is a necessary part of that cycle of giving and receiving. And of course, on the heels of Thanksgiving, our topic today is celebrating the harvest. A couple of weeks ago, we talked about this funny line that says, how quickly can I get to thank you, God? And you can say, thank you, Spirit, thank you, Joe, whatever works for you. How quickly can you get to thank you? When things aren't so directly and easily there for you to say, wow, great, thanks. Because those are the situations where we tend to learn a little bit more. So this week, we're talking about something similar in that we have harvests, we have results, we have outcomes, which are the kind that are really easy for us to say thank you for right off the bat. Because we got what we wanted, a piece of cake, great, you know. My turkey wasn't dry, my pie was good, the stuffing was perfect, everybody showed up on time, nothing burned, it was great, whatever. And there are things that are a little bit, let's just say they might take us a little longer to be grateful for, and yet what do? They somehow inform us, they somehow increase our capacity for a greater harvest in the future if we get the gifts of insight, the wisdom, the understanding that these circumstances give us. And the key to that is to learn how to be a metaphysician. The key to that is to learn how to see and practice as a metaphysician does, to become one. A metaphysician is one who studies what is beyond physical appearances and there's finding clues there. We find clues there beyond what appears to be taking place. And it turns out in every folklore and fairy tale and myth and you name it, everything from our modern science fiction to our ancient tales that we've read, for generations growing up, that there is more that is constantly being revealed in that realm just beyond what things look like. So we would like to learn how to see there, how to see that way. Because if we can, there's a distinct possibility that even those things that don't turn out the way that we'd like them to can give us some wisdom and understanding of how that particular area operates and what our relationship is with it. And then we can have a better experience in that area of our lives. So the beginning of this learning how to be a metaphysician has to do with sight. It has to do with our eyes. Of course, there are biblical passages and just as many lessons from Confucius and people all over, all different masters, all different cultures throughout time. How important it is to have eyes to see, to have our eyes wide open, to have our eyes fixed on that which we desire. But I want to just talk about having our eyes open. If we can look at a situation or a circumstance with our eyes open, during the time that our eyes are open, we're able to see more of it. And when we close them, we're done. Okay? If you think about that metaphorically, when something comes up in your life, how long do you keep your eyes open? Possibly not very long at all, unless there's something that you just haven't been able to work out and you decide, well, that's it. I'm going to take a few hours off. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to figure this thing out. You might do it with a journal. You might do it with a coach, a counselor. You might do it, I don't know, with a walk on the beach, talk to yourself, a bike ride. Who knows? Very often, though, when we're moving through life and we've got 9 different things going on, how much do we keep our eyes open? And in the very fact that we're not necessarily keeping our eyes open for that long indicates that we're probably going to miss a possibility. There's something about our eyes being open that's directly connected to our mind being open, of course. And before we go there, I want to talk about what we decide about what we see. Let's say we've got our eyes open, things are going well, and then there's that little thinker, There's that little, let's just say, the soul, the collection of every memory and experience you've ever had, the filter through which you see everything, and you look at something, and you say, I've decided I know what this means. This is the judge in us. I have seen this thing and I have decided what it means. There. Now I know where to put it. I've decided what it means. I know where to put it. Now I know how to deal with it. Life is good. Next. What if we were to suspend that judgment just a little bit, look a little longer, and consider something other than the information from our past, the information from what we've heard other people say, the information perhaps from one experience, and we were willing to suspend that judgment a little longer and say, this is what I think it means, but I'm going to stay open because maybe it means something else for me that I haven't really considered yet. Okay, so eyes open, suspend judgment. Then we look at the relationship between our eyes open and our willingness to remain open in terms of deciding what something means. What that does is that shapes our belief. Because our belief is really the combination of our thinking and feeling. And when we think a certain way, and when we feel a certain way, we might as well pour cement, practically. When we decide, this is what I believe, the universe says, you are my beloved in whom I am well pleased, you asked for it, you got it, Toyota, whatever it is, that believing has power. It is done unto you as you believe. Our founder, Ernest Holmes, of this teaching, which among other things is called religious science, talks about how this one phrase, it is done unto you as you believe. It's a biblical phrase, and I'm sure that Yeshua ben Joseph isn't the only one who taught it. However, it's a really significant one. It is done unto you as you believe. Well, we just started to take a little look at what it means to believe. To believe is to look, decide what it means, call it what you call it, then you got your belief. That's nice and tidy. Now I know what I believe about that, I can move on. However, we're discovering that there's a possibility that if we look too quickly, if we close our eyes too soon, if we decide what something means without a great deal of investigation or openness, there's a possibility that we might miss what it could be for us in our experience. We might miss an informative harvest. We might miss a result that has the capacity to grow our capacity to receive more in some way. It's possible that if we've already decided what X looks like and what to do about X and what we believe about X, and then we walk around saying, my life is always this way or that way, or it never changes, and it's always happening to me, and whatever, they always, and I never, we get ourselves in a place of powerlessness, which is not how we were made. It's an option, but it's not how we were made. So moving beyond the word belief, which is a combination of what we think and feel, and kind of cement by our choosing, and it's very powerful, is this other part of it is done unto you as you believe, and that's the word as. It goes by so quickly, it's so small, you'd hardly think it had any significance other than to tie the other words together. Think again. As. As could mean, it is done unto me when I believe. It is done unto me during the time which I am believing. It is done unto me to the degree that I am ready, willing, and able to believe for as long as I can keep that up. It is done unto me according to the degree of my believing. Ernest Holmes, whom I mentioned a minute ago, said that our use of that little piece right there, it is done unto us as we believe, is the difference between heaven and hell, and it's entirely up to us. He says, as is the deciding factor, and our belief determines whether it's heaven or hell. It's not a place, it's a state of mind. And by the way, we now know that a state of mind gathers to it a place. So, the best way to get out of that place is to get out of that state of mind. So here we are, we're saying we would like to have harvests, we would like to have outcomes, we would like to have results that really work for us. And some of them don't. That's okay, because even those have something to teach us about how it can be. So we want to look with the eyes of a metaphysician, which is to look beyond appearances. Then we want to remain open and withhold judgment. Shall I use my entire life history as a guide for me to determine what things mean? Only if I would like my future to be just like my past. I can do that. I can repeat yesterday. I don't want to repeat yesterday. I was sick yesterday. I don't really want to repeat yesterday. I want to grow. I want to become who I've dreamed of. I want to achieve and to experience things I've only longed for, and I know that I can because of how this works. But not if I get all my information from my past, or I could study everybody else's too, by the way, but it's still history. It's up to me. So stay open. Remember that what we see and what we make it mean determines what we believe, which what? Determines what is done in our experience. And then there's that part of as. You know why this is not a one-shot deal. This is why we are very eager to move into a space where we can have classes and groups and keep going over this stuff. That's why there are practitioners and ministers and musicians and authors, because everyone knows that we need to repeat this in order to get it. In order to erase the old historic default programs that would say, I don't know. So what we do then is we keep these open eyes, we keep this open mind and heart, and we remember that whatever we decide to call something is going to be our belief about it. And then what comes to pass will be in accordance with that. There are a couple of instances where one of these is just a regular everyday life thing, and one is a special situation. I remember going to one of those many workshops where you're supposed to break a board, walk on fire, do something unusual to prove that you really have no limits. And I've walked on fire 3 or 4 times. Some people say, I've done it 27 times. Well, I don't really need to do it 27 times. However, one of those times, I remember walking across, it's about a 12-foot pathway of coals that are at this special point they need to be at. They can apparently melt an engine block. I don't really want to know that. And the trick is that you are not supposed to walk unless you get your personal indication and guidance to do so. If you listen to someone else, you made your biggest mistake. So anyway, I'm having this private experience. I'm doing my mantra or whatever, and I'm really asking my higher knowing, is this mine to do? Is this mine to do to prove to myself that I have no limits? And I got a yes. And so I walked, and it was like nothing until this moment right here, my left foot. I had a doubt. What am I doing? And it burned. But I went right back into, I know what I'm doing, and the rest was fine. I had this one little spot on my foot that bugged me all night. And every time I thought, gee, that hurts, it hurt. And when I thought of it as something else, it was something else. So it's quite interesting. But on a more everyday note, we have this opportunity all the time. We have it when we get ready for work. We have it when we're in traffic. We have it when we're putting together an event. We have it all the time. This opportunity to decide what something means and how that law is going to work for us. When I talk about the law, it doesn't have guns. The law is the law of cause and effect. It's the law of correspondence. It's the law of correlation. It is the law of attraction. It's just that force that always says yes, that corresponds directly to whatever we put into it. That's how that works. Now, just for the scientists in the room, or shall I say the armchair scientists in us all, there's one more piece. We no longer have to rely on ancient mystical teachings. We no longer have to rely on a teacher saying, because I said so. Nothing is kept secret any longer. If we look at quantum physics, it says that whatever you measure for, whatever you are observing for, is what shows up. That really confounded a lot of people. Whatever you are measuring for, whatever you are observing for, is what shows up. In terms of everything being in wave form, infinite potential form, completely undefined, every possibility just floating up there like that. The moment that we say, that's what it is, that's what it means, that's what I believe, we collapse the wave. It becomes particularized. As that experience that we have named and claimed, and every other possibility disappears. Now, if you're in a bind, you're late for something, maybe you're trying to take a test and you have a really strong belief that you have test anxiety, and if you cave into that, you'll flunk it. Maybe you're trying to do something you've never done before. You really, really want to. You know you can, but if you give in to that idea that you can't, you can't. Not because there's good or bad or right or wrong. Shakespeare said, nothing is that way, but we make it so by our thinking. I said that all backwards, but you know what I mean. Nothing is good or bad, but thinking makes it so. And how crucial is that in that moment when you're taking a leap, when you're trying something new, when you're aiming for something that you really desire to have happen in your experience? To say, oh, it'll never work out. Okay, you are my beloved in whom I am well pleased. You want to never work out? I'll give you never work out. It's up to us. So this morning I wanted to wrap up this whole month with a bow and get a step closer to understanding all of this, because it's not magical thinking. But boy, does our thinking work magic. We really have that. We were given nearer than our breathing, closer than hands and feet, or as in the Talmud it says, nearer than your neck vein. That connection, that power of our thinking, our seeing, our choosing, our believing, for our lives to happen through us as we desire, or to appear to be happening to us, hell itself, if we don't know that we have this power this close. So I invite you to take that in today and play with it. Play with it in the smallest of scenarios. In some part of your life where you may have been struggling against time or the capacity to achieve or accomplish something you've always wanted. Try it again with openness Turn away from conditions. That's what our founder Ernest Holmes says. Turn away from what appears to be happening, and certainly turn away from whatever has happened in the past. And live this day anew. See this day anew. Believe anew, and see what happens.